LinhTV, Vietnamese American Arizona Television. Vietnamese American Arizona Television. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to VAATV.com, to the real estate world, and especially to the beginner who wants to do an investment and earn some profit. There are so many situations out there, and knowledge is the power. That's why we have Scott Bartlowe from SF Fuller Real Estate Investment come to the studio to provide all the information needed to start the investment from small to large. In our quest to unravel the complexity of the real estate market, we sat down with Scott Bartlowe, a seasoned real estate expert with many years of experience, to discuss the often overlooked yet critical, important aspect of the home buying process, home inspection. With his extensive knowledge and keen eye for the detail, Scott had navigated countless clients through the intricate process of selecting the right home inspector. We will try to shed light on the pivotal role of home inspection in the successful real estate transaction, and we will emphasize the importance of throughout due diligence, highlighting that an adept home inspector can uncover hidden issues that could impact not only the property value, but also the safety and well-being of its future occupant. Scott will also share valuable insight on how to choose the right home inspector, underscoring the significance of the experience, reputation, and a comprehensive inspection process. His extensive serve as a guiding beacon for those navigating the often tumultuous water of real estate, illuminating the path to informed and confident decision in the home buying journey. Hello, Scott. Welcome back.
How are you?
Good. So we know that last week you took a week off for the trip. The
Yes.
trip, how was everything?
It was good to get out of the heat.
All right. Good to know. Yes. So we're getting cooler here.
Yes, and it's a welcome relief.
Yeah. So then we have people asking many things though, but I think the one I just mentioned, the inspection, is really something important for people to know, that how we can choose the right inspector to buy a property, because that can be a great impact, for
Yes.
later on. Yes.
Before I get into how to select the inspector, I just wanted to kind of mention, as part of the standard purchase contract,
Yes.
there is a section that in that contract, it's called due diligence.
Yes.
And it does allow for a period where you can go through and do inspections of any type that you want.
Yes.
And they use the term inspection loosely. We use it to refer to having a trained person who comes out to look at the home. But your inspections, and when I say your inspections, I'm talking about you as the buyer.
I see.
You have a variety of different types of inspections that you can do. Hopefully your broker is providing you with a booklet. It's called the Arizona Buyer's Guide.
Right.
And it's something that both the Arizona Realtors Association as well as the Arizona Department of Real Estate have endorsed.
Okay.
But it goes through and it talks about selecting different types of inspectors, as well as the types of inspections you could do. For example, we'll talk momentarily here about doing home inspections on the house, but there's also opportunities for looking things like crime statistics, looking at how close the fire department is, looking at past insurance claims, all of those types of things fall into it. But when we're talking specifically about home inspections, and that's what most folks talk or think about, it's having a trained inspector come in. Here in the state of Arizona, the Arizona Board of Technical Registration licenses the building inspectors.
Okay.
And so they have to go through a classroom training as well as an apprenticeship where they do inspections with a trained inspector. And of course, the state does maintain a list of inspectors, and I would heartily suggest that anybody that if you're looking, if you don't get a recommendation from your realtor, that's a good place to look. One thing I might say, and this is something that most professionals that I know of do, is when one of my clients asks for an inspector, I usually provide at least 3.
Right.
The names and background of at least 3. That way, the client, if they so desire, they can go and they can contact the inspector, do a little bit of looking up, see how they've done, if there's any complaints against them, that type of thing. There is, and you can see how long that they've been in business. I mean, obviously, if you've got a inspection service that's been in business for 10 or 15 years, they probably, with no complaints at the state, they probably have a little more good credibility and reputation than the guy that's just starting off this year.
I see.
But going back to the contract, as I said before, in the contract, there is a specific time period that's listed as a standard amount of days for that inspection period. Typically on a residential contract, it's 10 days. Now, there's nothing to say that you have to stick with the 10 days. For example, if you're going to be out of town or out of state and you need a longer period, you can request that, and that's something that can be negotiated between the buyer and the seller. But once the inspection period starts, the clock literally is running. And so it behooves you to move as quickly as you can to have your inspector lined up. And the inspector, once you've verified that you like what his credentials are and everything, he will actually schedule a time. He'll go to the home, and there is a set criteria that the state has mandated, not only through training, but things that need to be inspected. And if you think about it, you look at the roof, start with the roof.
Yes.
The roof needs to be inspected. The HVAC unit needs to be inspected. Your electrical system, your plumbing system, all of those types of things need to be inspected. You need somebody to look at the foundation. You need to have somebody look at the windows and the doors. Are they functioning properly? Because if they're not functioning properly, it could be an indication that there's something wrong. You look at the inspector will look at the floor. And if you have tile on the floor and there's cracks running through, linear cracks running through the tile, that could be an indication that there is a
something
movement
underneath.
that there's a movement in the pad underneath. When it comes to inspectors, think of them as generalists.
Right.
They can come through and they can inspect a variety of things. But say they see something that's the matter with the roof, they are not a roofing contractor. They are not a roofing inspector. So at best, what they can do is in their inspection report is they can note that they saw this, it is of concern, and they can recommend that you have a licensed roofing contractor. And while I'm on the subjects of roofs, one thing that seems to be becoming more prevalent these days is on homes that have tile roofs, especially older homes that have tile roofs, the under laminate, the tar paper that's underneath the tiles, in many cases, has a much shorter lifespan than the tiles themselves. The concrete tiles typically have got about a 50-year lifespan, whereas that paper that's underneath may only have a 10 or 15 to 20 year. There's varying degrees of it. So that's why when you drive through a neighborhood sometimes and you see a house where they're taking all the tiles off the roof, what they're doing is they're getting down to stripping that tar paper so they put a new one down. That the tar paper or the roofing paper and the tile, think of them as a system. They have to work together to keep your home watertight. And so if one fails,
the other one failed too.
The other one over time will probably fail.
But like, how did is there like, because if they purchase the home and they don't even know what underneath, how do they discover that?
Well, and that's part of what the inspector does. The inspector is going to look at a roof, and I can tell you some of the most common things that they find is displaced tiles, because if the tile is moved, now that has exposed the paper underneath.
I see.
So then the inspector can look at that paper underneath. He can tell if it's torn, if it's ripped back. And then at the edges, you know how the roof slopes down. They can look up underneath the edges and they can see if that paper is curled, if it's crunchy, if it's ready to break apart.
It's ready to break apart.
So that's on the roof. On the air conditioning system, once again, they will check for things to make sure that you're getting the correct temperature drops. Generally, it's a 20-degree temperature drop. In other words, when you turn on the air conditioning and it's 80 degrees, they'll check the temperature. They typically use an infrared thermometer, but they'll measure what the temperature that's coming out of the vent is. And so they need that 20-degree drop. And then, of course, they're going to inspect the units to see if there's any physical damage. But the air conditioning, the roof, and then, of course, the electrical. They'll also take a look at the electrical. Older homes here, the best wiring that we have is copper wiring.
Yes.
But there are homes that were built in the 70s that have aluminum wiring.
Oh.
And aluminum has potential to create sparking. So that's something that you need to be aware of. There are methods for handling that. If you do have aluminum wiring, you don't have to rip it all out. But there's some precautions you can take to make sure that you don't have any of those types of issues.
Oh, I see. So then,
as you said earlier, knowledge is key.
It's the power.
Yep, exactly right.
So I was thinking like, good to have the real estate who help with the paperwork, also refer the inspector. But like you said, the reputation, the experience, and because sometimes like the buyer have no knowledge. Okay, whatever you recommend is good or not. Because I know. And I want to ask you that the inspector they have to be specialized in commercial or or residential or anything like that?
Well, typically they start. Most of the folks that I know that are inspectors, they started off in construction. Whether they were a tradesman, a plumber, or carpenter, or roofer, or something like that. They started off in construction, so they bring their expertise from those fields with them. But then it's the additional training that the state mandates
for the license of
that rounds out their experience. The other thing is, and this is just a sign of the times with the technology.
Yes.
Most of the inspectors, they carry an iPad or something similar, and the form is already on there, so they can very quickly go through and put their observations down.
Right.
Generally, they can get a full report to you within 24 hours, and it includes pictures.
I see.
One of the best things that's happened in the last couple of years with technology, of course, is drones.
Oh.
Because roofing inspectors used to have to walk up on those tiles.
All the way down, too high. Yeah.
And you got some big guys. I'm a big guy. I wouldn't want to walk on the tiles, and because
it's going to
damage. They crack. And so you can take the drones up there. You can get much better pictures. You can zoom in on where there's problem areas, maybe in the valleys where you've got two roof lines that come together and that drains off. That's a common place where the roof tiles come loose and the under laminate can get exposed.
Wow.
So they can really get good pictures in that respect.
So then, like, and also like when they do run the business, they also carry the insurance liability permission.
They carry errors and omission insurance,
right?
As well as liability insurance. Yes.
So all that we need to know, and then we have to really, like you said, if the experience already, then we don't worry much because those areas will be covered. By the at the time the agent will meet with the inspector, right?
Exactly.
To run over what's need to be done and all that.
You know, one thing that I caution folks on is that the inspectors are able to inspect what they can observe and get to. If you have something that's in the wall, for example, maybe you've got pipes or you've got electrical outlets in the wall. He can't open the wall up to inspect what's inside there. He can only do testing on the stuff that's outside the walls, and that can only give him a good indication that whether or not things are functioning properly. But in years gone by, there were different materials that were used. One was a piping material. I believe it was called butylene. And I may have that wrong, but it was a brittle type of a plastic, and over time it would fail. And you could have substantial leaks from that.
Oh.
Now there's a lot of houses that have just been retrofitted, and it's something that's not used anymore. So it's far less common to hear about that than it used to be.
So basically, the inspection, the inspector will come inspect the home or anywhere else. They have to go through those major issue with plumbing, electrical,
climb
roofing,
up in the attic, all of those types of things.
Yeah, AC. So those are important for the factor to
but they, like I said, they'll look at the flooring,
the floor,
well.
and then under the foundation. Yeah,
they'll go outside. They'll look at the around the windows, and they'll look for cracks and stucco, those types of things. Is it because stucco is not a waterproof material. The paint over the stucco is what helps to give you your water.
They have the primer and everything that to protect that.
Exactly
but
right.
Otherwise, it's going to break apart inside, right? If they don't use the correct paint for that.
Once an inspector has gone through, and let's say that an inspector let's go back up to the roof. Let's say the inspector went through and he found a couple of things where he suggested that you get either a licensed contractor or a regular full service roofing inspector.
Okay.
They can come out then, he'll say, recommend that you have this evaluated by a roofing contractor.
Okay.
So then you can call your own roofing contractor. He can go out and he can look and goes, yes, that's a problem. No, that's a problem. If it is a problem, he can give you an estimate on what needs to be done to repair it and bring it up to standard. The reason I tell you that is that it's important is because during this inspection process, what you're looking at is all of the things that may need to be fixed on that home. At the end of the inspection period, actually just prior to the inspection period, there's another document. It's called a buyer's inspection notice, seller's response.
Right.
So let's say that we've got a problem with our roof.
Right.
And so we tell the buyer on this form that we want the roof repaired in the
seller, you mean?
Yes.
Have the seller, right?
Yep. Have the seller go through and make repairs. Now the seller, there's different ways that the seller can do it. He can say no, he doesn't want to pay for it. Yes, he'll pay for everything, or he'll just give you cash to pay for it. So there's several different ways. But it's that inspection.
If he didn't pay, then you have a right to cancel it, right?
Exactly. But that inspection is what kicks that to the next degree, so that you can tell the seller what items that you would like
to cover, like
exactly
how much money that you're going to spend after you purchase the property.
Well, and that's just it. You don't want to be in a position after the fact where
you're surprising with all the problem and issue that occur.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think like with the inspection, there's a period like that to cover, like whatever you said, because if the person have a good broker, good real estate agent, then they just gonna need help from the agent to lead them, what's next. But if the person that they don't look for, they just go for seller owner and all that, then they look for the inspection who gonna do everything for them.
Yes.
Then they gotta understand what to ask and what to look for and all that sort, right?
Yep.
It's more
and that's one reason why I suggested that any buyer gets a copy of the Arizona Buyer's Advisory.
Yes.
Because it will talk about all the different pitfalls, all the different resources, all the different things that they can think about. They don't have to read it verbatim, but they can go use it as a guide.
The guide to know. Where did they get that, you said?
They can get it either from their broker or they can get it from Arizona Realtors Association.
Realtor Association, yes. Just to know, like,
if somebody
what's
has
there. Yeah.
If somebody needs a copy, I'd be happy to send it to them.
Yeah. So
it's about 20 pages long.
Yeah. But like sometimes they're lazy. That's why if you know something, you point it out for them.
Yes.
Right. That's why we have the frequent talk show, and so they will see that's the important that they have to look for.
Yes.
Because a lot of people bypass the inspection. And then later on, they cannot go back and do it. Let's say, if the seller know about this and don't disclose about mold, just for example, then those going to be in the force of what the seller didn't disclose, right?
If the seller is aware of any defects, they need to disclose.
They need to disclose,
If they don't disclose it, it can become a legal issue.
Yeah. If they don't disclose and later on found out, then they
precisely. And sometimes
but they say they don't know. How about that?
Well, and sometimes that could be very possible. Just like what I was talking about before, where you've got the water lines in the wall. Maybe there's nothing on the outside of the wall to indicate that there was a leak. But yet, one day something happens catastrophic. You start having water on the floor. You do some digging and you go, well, this has been leaking for months. But maybe it was corroded and it was just a drip, and it was sufficient to be absorbed in the wall with the insulation.
Stuff. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of, because when people buy something, especially for the home, they don't know about hidden, like behind the wall.
Those
Nobody knows.
Hidden defects.
Like a little bit of dropping, but like time, but good for the Arizona because dry season.
Yes.
Weather is way better, but like somewhere there's like humid or something, then it's going to create a mold and a lot of stuff.
The one thing about it, after you've done all your inspections and the transaction is closed, you can also include a home warranty. And the home warranty, many of those home warranties will pick up and provide additional protection against those defects that were not discovered during the inspection.
So that only for the residential, right?
Yes.
The home warranty only cover for residential, for everything, but not the commercial or office building.
Correct. Commercial is a little bit different, and it's generally because of the type of construction that's done. Where most residential that folks are used to seeing is frame with stucco over it. In other words, where they use wood to build a frame wall, and then they coat the outside of the building. There's still a lot of commercial buildings that are built the same way, but then there are buildings that use steel studs, steel framing material, and they use a lot more concrete or masonry products for the outside of the buildings. A lot more glass. There's some of the building systems that they use are more sophisticated on the commercial side. The electrical systems are usually far beefier on commercial because you're distributing power to multiple tenants in many cases. Plumbing is much the same, and I can tell you that the power companies, the utility companies, they look at the commercial places much closer than they do the residential, just because of the potential. But the inspector that you get in for that, you want to have an experienced commercial inspector, and in many cases, if you've had a business that has had chemicals on the property, then you're going to want to have an environmental engineer come out and do what they call a phase 1 inspection. And a phase 1 inspection is typically done by a certified environmental engineer. And what they'll do is they'll do a history on the property to see what kind of businesses is operated there. Let's say that you had a business there that was doing auto shop, and they were painting. So that now you've got solvents, you've got paints and everything. And did they dispose of that stuff responsibly? If they had oil from oil changes, how are they storing their oil? And so what they're going to look for is there any place where there might be leaks or something that got into the soil, those types of things. They'll do a physical walk around on it, and then they generate a report. If in fact they do find something that's questionable, then they move to what they call a phase 2 inspection. And what that is they'll come out and they'll take samples of the areas that are in question. And then lastly, phase 3 is where they do the remediation. Maybe they have to dig something up, haul the contaminated soil away.
And then test it.
And test it. Exactly right. And I'm sure everybody has seen, gas stations that shut down. They pull the tanks out. They come back in and they test that soil. Underneath. Yes. And those reports on that soil testing, those go into the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, and they're maintained in their files. So you can always go down and get a copy.
Okay. So I can see that the role for the inspector really important, in this situation. If like he missed something, then it's going to be like a big hassle later on. So and that's important.
And that's why you want to get the right inspector for the right property.
But also the buyer, they can educate themselves to understand what area to ask, right?
Yes.
And like usually the inspection, they always ask like to sign WSK, say the limited liability. Is the buyer say like those they not guarantee? So maybe you can explain like, because the inspector cannot guarantee other work that they provided. They always have the liability.
And the reason for it is, just like the example I used,
limited liability. Yeah, they say
they cannot damage something inside the home to get inside to inspect it.
To know exactly.
So and they don't have the capability these days yet to X-ray the walls and those types of things. So there is a limit to what they can do to inspect.
So like, let's say they're hidden behind the wall and there's nothing outside that can see, then they can't provide anything about it.
That's correct.
Yeah. So anything. So then that's why the buyer, they have to understand that about the limited liability. That's what that means, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because they say, why we need the inspector when we only know limited.
Well, and it's like I said, it's just from the standpoint of not breaking the seal of the wall or damaging something.
Yeah.
But going back to what I said before, if you get a home warranty, which typically covers a lot of different things, think of a home warranty as an insurance policy.
Right.
But in many cases, they will cover things, those latent defects, those hidden defects, if they appear during the policy.
Yeah. Before, I know that a lot of people don't trust about home warranty because they've been burned out. Like if things happen, then the home warranty always give you the excuse that, they don't cover that. And
then, you know what? There are a lot of home warranty companies out there that
important though, because at first they will offer a lot. They say, give a credit for 5 months, 3 months or whatever, and don't have to worry when something happens. But after the payment and things occur that the owner needs to place in service, then it's always a denial.
Well, I would say when it comes to home warranty, do your due diligence, just like we were talking about the home warranty. I mean, the home inspection. Yeah. But talk to the agent that you're working with.
Yes.
Get their recommendations, and then get online and Google them. See what kind of complaints they get.
Right.
Look at the Better Business Bureau, because that's a type of business that if there is a problem, people will complain, and the history will reveal itself.
I see. So maybe you understand about a little bit like what scary people when we're talking about mold. Why people were talking about it's just a stain on the wall, like green color. Why is a worry then?
Well, mold is considered one of those environmental contaminants, and the state has several guidelines. Maricopa County has guidelines on mold. The key thing is it can make some people deathly ill, and mold in many cases, it can sit there latent. The spores can be formed, and if you disturb it, those spores end up getting spread out. Now, when a home inspector comes through and he sees, like, let's say one of the most common places is in the bathroom or the laundry room, where you've got
moist, a lot of moist.
Exactly right. And I remember one of the inspectors that I recommend that I really liked. He told me one time, he goes, "You know what mold looks like. I know what mold looks like, but I can't say that that's mold." It has to be tested.
Have it tested.
So what he has to say is recommend evaluation by a mold testing service. So they'll take.
They're the one that mentioned like a diagnose and say like, okay, it is a mold.
Well, they'll come out and they'll take samples and they'll actually test it.
Test it and find out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nobody can. Yeah. Maybe like just a stain from something.
It could very well be.
It could very that. So then, I know like, so the buyer has a right to request the home inspector to come and do the inspection right before the end of the due diligence date, right?
Yes.
I mentioned it out.
Yep.
Yeah. What I'm saying right now is like, I don't talk about when the buyer already have an agent. But like the buyer, if by itself, like they do for several owner or anything like that, then they gotta know they're right. You know, they can do that.
They can put they can put, even if you got two individuals with no realtors in between.
Yeah.
If you're negotiating with another owner, you should always put in there that you need time to come in and do your due diligence. Even if you're the only one that walks through, because many people, if you've bought and sold a few properties, you've got developed a little bit of an eye for being able to spot problems. Yeah. But I would always, and I've seen people do their own inspections, but then they'll bring in somebody to do the roof. Somebody specifically to do the AC. Exactly.
Yeah. But I think like, because I'm saying that typically general like that, more important is like they gotta have an agent help them, you know, for sure. Even like with they already negotiate with the together, but it's good to pick the good agent to be helping them with the paperwork and make sure that they don't miss anything.
And gets because there are legal timelines for a lot of different things. Yeah. Yes.
And then like later on down the line, even the seller or the buyer, they all can protect with those paper.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then, okay, we're gonna move on to the next things that I know the question they asking about property tax. They see like the tax bill is so confusing. You know,
the tax bills are confusing. I'm probably not gonna shed a whole lot of light on that. Yeah. But what I can say,
they'd have to look for.
In September is typically when you receive your tax bill. The taxes run annually, so it runs from January 1st to December 31st, but they are paid in arrears. And by saying paid in arrears, for example, if you just got your tax bill here in the last week or so, I got mine on some of my property. So you look at it, that bill is the taxes starting from January 1st of 2023.
Yeah. Oh.
So those are the first half taxes. The bill goes out by the end of September, and it is due and payable by October 1st. Wow. If it's not paid, if the first half isn't paid, at November 1st, it becomes delinquent. If you pay both the first and the second half of taxes by December 31st, then there's no delinquency.
So that's covered. Yeah. Oh. And the delinquency is 10%. 10% of the amount.
Yes.
Of the amount. If they don't pay, if they only pay half by the end of the December, then they still have to pay the penalty for the first half.
Yep, and then and then the second half of taxes is due. If you haven't paid everything by December 31st, second half of taxes is due March 1st.
March 1st, I see. But I think whoever do investment and they kind of know it's just benefit for them to just do all by the end of the year, so that they can claim for the tax deduction.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, they can use that, right? I mean, they can use for the expense.
That's exactly
for the property tax. So that inside the property tax, there are many things to cover to assess and to make up the number of the amount.
It is, and it can be very, very confusing. And I'm not even going to pretend to try to explain everything because
it's just straightforward. Say, okay, what's in there? The trust.
Generally speaking, everything is based off market values. The market values are usually a couple of years in arrears. So the assessor for each county is looking at market values and they're adjusting the tax rate based off that. Yeah. Now, it's not an exact science by any stretch of the imagination. There's some formulas that they still have to use that the state mandates, but it's still basically like market value. It's a trailing indicator. Almost never is the assessed values as high as what the market values are.
So then how, like I see sometimes how they jump, like the market value from the last year to the next year, is there a limit of percentage that it jump up? On the assessed value? On
residential, it should be 5%.
5%, oh, so they never go higher than that, huh?
Not supposed to. But they do make mistakes. And as a taxpayer, you have the right to appeal it.
Okay.
You go to because the property taxes are paid to the county. You go to the county, and they have an appeal process. You fill out some paperwork, and you can appeal it.
Oh, But like what documentation for getting the experience? I mean, whatever they say, we say yay. We don't know what.
Most of the time, when I see a taxpayer coming out and appealing their taxes, they generally get an attorney that is well versed in that, and they're going to pull things like other sales, other comps, and they'll look at what other people, similar properties, what are they paying for taxes.
So each of how do they determine the value? Let's say if they're an improvement for the home or something, and nobody notified it to them, then they just value based on the market of the area?
Well, most properties, when they sell, there's a document, it's called an affidavit of value. And that's filled out by the title company at the time of the sale. And it tells the county where the sale occurred, what the purchase price was. So they use that purchase price. And let me give you a quick example. Suppose you got a guy and he's had this house for 25 years.
Right.
He bought the house for $150,000. Now he sells it after 25 years for $400,000.
Right.
So that new affidavit of value goes in with that new price on it. So the county is going to look at the $400,000, and that's where some of the big jumps come from.
Oh, I see.
Sometimes it'll take almost a year for it to catch up, because remember what I was saying about how we're paying, we're not just now getting the bill here in September.
Pay before,
starting from January 1st.
Coming tax. So then that's why some people, they might, after they complete the sale, they can see the like a supplemental tax or something like that bill to them. But how do they know that that's their portion to pay? That right? I mean, in there that they.
I don't see a whole lot of those supplemental taxes. Generally speaking, it just gets caught up in the next tax cycle.
Caught up to the next one right away, like the escrow can cut it, huh?
Well, no, escrow doesn't catch it. It's the county. It's in the county's ball court. And so it's usually it goes into the next tax year. Once they've assigned what your tax values are for this year, for 2023, they're not going to come back and change them.
Oh, so not like the transfer to the next buyer.
Nope.
Let's say,
And it's a funny thing. The first, I built a house back in 2005, and it had bare land. So I was paying, about $400 a year for taxes on the bare land. Once I got the house built, it was over 3,000 square feet.
Wow.
The tax bill jumped to $4,000.
Wow.
But that was because it took almost a full year for that to go through the cycle and for the county to note in their records that there's no longer bare land. Now it's a residence.
So basically we'll calculate the base for that year, and then let's say you sell it for the coming month, then the buyer will be safer, like they don't have to pay like a big tax that was back on, right? Like
that's correct.
That,
and the other thing to remember is at the sale, the title company is going to bring that tax bill to completion. They'll make sure that either if it's close to the end of the tax year, like as we're getting here now into the fourth quarter of 2023, any of those sales, the title companies will make sure that the tax for the entire year has been paid.
I see. Yeah.
And that'll be part of the transaction.
So then that we're talking about pay the tax, but let's say I heard the funny story that they didn't know anybody sent them the bill, but they don't know what it is. They didn't pay for it. And that for many, they don't pay for it. And we asked, why didn't you pay the tax? And well, nobody called me and asked for the money. So then what happened if they don't pay the tax or they forgot to pay the tax?
Well, if they go long enough without paying the tax, the counties will enact a tax lien on the property.
They don't take away the house? Right?
Well, not just yet. But what they'll do is they'll go, okay, so say you owe $10,000 in taxes on your property and you haven't paid them. And they've given you some time to get caught up and you still haven't gotten caught up. What they can do is they can put it out once a year on a list and the general public can come in and go, I'll bid on that house.
Auction.
Well, no, they're paying for the taxes.
Oh,
they're
not
auctioning.
Yeah, they pay for the tax.
So they pay for the tax. They get caught up on that $10,000. But that property owner, he owes that person, if he ever wants to sell it, he owes them the $10,000 plus
Interest.
he owes interest, and the interest starts at 16%.
Oh my God. That's really high.
It is, and it's it's designed.
But the interest was designed by each individual, or they have a timeline.
No,
time
that's what the counties start at, is at 16%.
16%.
If it's the rule of thumb that I've had from people who know how to do that, because there are people that's all they do is they invest in tax lien.
Yeah.
They always say, only put money in on properties that you would own. In other words, suppose that you put that $10,000 down and they didn't pay for it. So now you have to go through and you put more money down. And at a certain point, that can be taken from them.
Oh.
And it can go to you.
Oh.
I mean, there's a lot more requirements.
So there's legal, yeah. So they have to just go straight to that and just do the paperwork and get the house.
But think of it this way: you could have a piece of land along a construction or a commercial site, and all that's in that piece of land is the utility lines.
Oh, okay.
So somebody says at some point, "I'm not paying taxes on it."
They cannot just say don't pay.
You can't come in and just take the utilities out. So it's kind of an undesirable piece of land. And even if you go to the very end where it gets that tax foreclosure,
still your own responsibility.
What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
So that's why you want to do enough due diligence on that to make sure it's something that you would own.
Yeah. Because see, that's the thing. Like when so people gotta know, like, okay. Sometimes we're so busy in our daily life and we might forgot all about it. But we got to know, like, we own a house, we got to have insurance, hazard insurance. We own, and then property tax to take care. All those mortgage payment every month, then it's okay to remember. But the home insurance only once a year.
Right.
And the property tax, the same thing.
Well, but the beauty of it is, if you have a mortgage company,
they can collect the money
as part of your payments every month. There is an escrow, a collection where they take 1/12 of your property tax bill and 1/12 of your insurance bill, and they set it aside in that escrow account. And this is a different type of escrow than what you would have at title company.
Okay.
But it's the lender.
It's called the impound account.
Impound. That's another way of putting it.
Yeah.
So what they do is when that tax bill comes out, if you have a mortgage on your home, the lender gets a tax bill as well. So they know it's time to pay and they know what the amount is. And then when the insurance premium is due, or the renewal is due, they also get a notice. So the homeowner or the owner of that property, if they've got a mortgage, they're not flying in the dark. It's the owner who has it completely paid off, that paid cash for it. They need to be responsible and make sure that they're
remember to pay for
checking those dates. If you have to, put it on the calendar.
But gotta be important, because if something happened, then the house not covered. But there's another issue, like it's come up, like with the impound account that you said. Sometimes the tax will go to the owner for sure, and then go to the they don't go to the owner, but they go to the mortgage, let's say, right? And then like one day the owner received a letter saying that they never see that the property has insurance, meaning like expire, but nobody pay for, so they have to they have to force purchase the insurance. And then also with the property tax, they don't receive the bill and they don't pay. So who responsible when they say they have the impound account? The lender, the one follow up to make sure the account paid.
The lender's got a great deal of responsibility on that.
Okay.
And the insurance companies, they will send them a notice because they know that lender they know what what the situation is. So they will send that. And most of the time, if there's no response from that lender, the insurance company will start calling the owner.
Yeah, because sometimes like they transfer the loan, like they sell loan and all that. I thought like they got to do that internally with, with the transfer to that, and then transfer the information to the insurance so that they know who the mortgage.
If you have a loan and that lender sells that loan to another lender,
investor,
then the impounds go with it.
Go with it. Okay.
If you buy a house and you have your original loan,
yes,
and then you refinance with an entirely different company, you're going to have to do new impounds, and then your old mortgage company will reimburse you for what you've had in your impound account.
Okay. And maybe people will, we're talking about loan impound, okay? Like what you said is like there's a benefit for the lender to hold the impound, which is tax and insurance. They collect them monthly and then they pay when it's due. There's another thing that we call the impound, but the PMI, you know, like when they make a low.
It's what it is. It's mortgage insurance.
Okay. Yes.
Basically, and this is just kind of general rule of thumb, but if you're doing a conventional loan and you put over 20% down, you don't pay PMI.
You don't pay PMI.
If you're a veteran and you use a veteran's a VA loan, you don't pay PMI.
Right.
And that's one of the advantages. But if you do an FHA loan, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and you don't put that 20%
like
down,
less than 10% down, then they do that
exactly.
impound. So that's why people sometimes they don't know. They thought like impound meaning like they have to pay extra for the PMI. So they don't know about that. Oh, I don't want impound. They just think that way.
But you know, one thing about the mortgage insurance, PMI. Let's suppose that you bought a house here 5 years ago. You bought that house for $300,000, and you didn't put 20% down.
Yeah.
You know, which would have been $60,000.
Right.
But as time has gone on, and that value of that house has gone up, you can go back and you can ask for a new assessment.
More equity in the house already, so there's more money. So meaning like that's my down payment, and then they can either delete it or
you can ask
something, right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's good because a lot of people they're afraid when they put the down payment, less down payment, they got to pay a little bit extra money every month to protect the loan. And but the solution is like if it down the line and the value went up, they can always get that off.
Exactly right.
Or they can refinance it, whatever, you know, for that. I think if we're talking about that loan, the interest rate. Oh, how's the interest rate today? Do you know that we have
right around 7%? It hasn't changed significantly.
7%.
Yeah.
It was like I mean, like a few months, like in January, is like 5 something. Right?
Well, in January of this year, it did go up to about 7. 7? And over the holidays of last year.
I didn't buy any property.
and then it went down slightly. You know, just because the Fed raises interest rates, the effect on the mortgage industry is not one for one. The mortgage industry they keep coming up with some pretty innovative loans to help people do things. One of which is they'll buy down the rate for a year or so. So there's some things that are being done to help people get into homes. Long term, I would say here at least through the end of the year, well into next year, we're probably going to see someplace around the same rate. Wow! But you know, historically.
It went all the way up to 10%.
Well,
yeah, it was like before.
Back in the late 70s, like early 80s, it was approaching 20%.
Oh,
and
I didn't know about that time frame.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
But here right now, you know, 6 to 8% had generally been pretty well accepted. So we're in the historical norm. We've just been spoiled over the last few years with all the money that was dumped in.
Yeah, it was just like sometimes only 3%, 4%. Oh my God.
I talked to somebody today that bought a brand new home for 2.3%.
Yeah.
It was a builder's special.
Wow. I mean, like just keep paying it, no problem.
But those days are gone. Yeah. At least for a while. And you know, so one of the things that I hear from a lot of people, and it certainly makes sense, if you have a home or a property that you like, if you can afford it, go ahead and buy it, because the properties historically we're appreciating at about 4% per year. So if you buy that, even if you're paying a little bit higher loan, you're still appreciating. And,
get more money.
And you know as well as I do, at some point those rates are going to come back down.
Yeah.
And then refinance.
Refinance it. But like, so the question for people is that should they buy a home to do that, or did they buy? Are they gonna looking for a commercial building?
Well, commercial is a horse of a different color right now. When it comes to buying a home, you can most of the mortgage companies that provide home loans are very similar because they're operating within federal guidelines. They have to follow HUD, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac.
Yeah.
So to get those loans purchased in the secondary market, there's rules that they have to adhere to. When it comes to commercial loans are usually financed by regional banks. They can be financed by insurance companies. They can be financed by pensions. And so because they're putting a lot more money in.
Right.
Those mortgages are not held to be resold.
Yeah.
Those are held by that bank or that mortgage company, by that insurance company. So right now, the lowest that I'm seeing on some of the loans is about 7 to 8%. 8.5% seems to be generally pretty standard, but I've seen it well over 10%. And the other thing too is not all lenders are the same, because if you go to a home mortgage company, they can do a single family home, they can do a 2-story home, they can do a townhouse, those types of things. No problem. It's all residential, all fits under the same umbrella. But if you have a commercial lender, a commercial lender may say, well, we'll lend on offices and retail. Another commercial lender may say, we'll only do industrial. And that's because there's a specialization, just like what I was talking about before about doing the inspections. Those lenders, they have to understand that business. They have to understand how the function of it. Exactly. The types of things. And they can condition more inspections than what the buyer puts in.
What to approve and all that. Because you're right, commercial, sometimes there's retail, sometimes there's like industrial. So many types there.
And the amounts that they want down generally is higher. It's not surprising to see 35% down. If you're going to buy raw land, it's usually 50%.
Wow, really?
Yes.
So you think like if we buy the land and then we build it, so from the time we buy to the time build, usually how long does it take for the builder?
It depends on the project. If it's a residence, you're usually talking 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
If you're talking a commercial project, it can sometimes take over a year. And part of the reason for that is you have to think about what type of infrastructure they're bringing onto the property. With a house, you got a water line, you got the electrical power, and you've got sewer lines. Well, you've got the same thing for a commercial, but if you think of a strip center with a grocery store, think about how much more that they need, the electrical that they need to bring in. So all of that has to be brought in. They have to put lights out in the parking lot. All of those different types of infrastructure have to be done.
I see. So let's say a piece of property that they purchase, and then there's another piece of property. They have two different parcels there, but they only have one line of electrical together. So then, but they're two separate pieces. Is that difficult to separate it?
Well, in a case like that, usually what you're going to have to do is you're going to have an electrical engineer, and they're going to have to work with the power company, whether it be SRP or APS, because there will be specific requirements that are in the building code or the electrical code, and so they'll need to make sure that they're putting in the proper the proper
things, approved by the state, right? By that.
By the municipality, if it's in the city or the county.
For that. Oh, wow. There's so many things that, so anything news about real estate that you want to share, anything else that because I know the question we talk, I just remind people, like I know like and for me too, sometimes I forgot, we have many things to worry. And then especially if somebody that they have multiple property, they might miss the deadline of payment, like the real estate tax, if they pay separately, the insurance, and any of the what else besides like Just the two main things is the tax and the
tax,
and the
tax,
insurance.
the insurance.
Yeah.
And those are the
those
two
are main thing. Yeah, because if like something happened to the home and the house pay all cash, like pay already, like don't worry about the mortgage. Things happen, and then you look, oh, where's the insurance? Well, I don't have to, so who can cover? You know, you damage something like all the roof, all the water heater broke down, and all that.
I've had that happen. I had a client that I sold him a house.
Yes.
He was from California, and his intention was he was buying a house around ASU so that one of his daughters could live in the house while she was going to school. He bought the house. He paid cash. He had another daughter that came from California, and she did the same thing. She lived in the house. She went to ASU. Then after that daughter graduated, he called me and he says, "Hey, I want to sell the house." So we're getting ready to sell, and I said to him that I need your insurance claims history, and he goes, "I never got insurance."
Oh my God!
So he was basically living a gifted life for about 8 years because he had nothing to come for a claim.
Because like the insurance, like people know that they can they cover roof, they cover the plumbing. If something like heavy, they cover that. So those are very costly, and
and even liability insurance.
Suppose
you have somebody
fail at your door.
At your door.
Yeah. So those are very important. And a lot of people don't know about why. And then the insurance has got to be covered based on the limit too, right? The right amount too. Let's say if you don't have a loan, then no requirement. So then when you thinking like you just buy it just to cover enough, then maybe
and that's a very important point. Because let's say that you bought that house for $300,000 a few years ago.
Right.
And the insurance company at the time, what they do is they're really looking at replacement costs. The land is fixed. The land's not going to go anywhere. Even if the house burns down, or the land is still there. The property can be rebuilt. So that's what the insurance company is typically going to pay for, is replacement costs. But if you bought that and they haven't upped the replacement costs, to do what it costs to build a house for $300,000, then you can't do that now, because that same house may cost $500,000. The cost of building materials has just gone up exponentially. So you need to make sure that your insurance company is keeping up with what the replacement costs.
Because I know sometimes they don't understand about the insurance. Like they say dwelling coverage. Is that dwelling is the value, the price of the house, or they have replacement costs in there? What's the confusion?
Generally speaking, when they say dwelling, it's to cover the building.
The building. So just that's it. Let's say the building, like they're thinking about $500,000. They have to cover up to $500,000, right?
If that's what what
about the replacement cost? What's that?
Well, that's generally what replacement cost is and dwelling cost is.
So because I know that if they make the amount higher on the dwelling, like $500,000 straight on the dwelling, plus the replacement cost, and they pay more. But what they have to do to save money and still get the right coverage.
Usually, you want to make sure that you're covered for the replacement cost. The replacement costs.
Oh, the replacement cost. So let's say if the property, that's the insurance. I still have to go over, and then maybe we'll ask. A lot of people will say, why they have to pay so much money for dwelling, and then what is the home replacement cost? They say BTU 38 or something. What is that for? Like sometimes they say the insurance agent have to provide that to you. If they don't put that in, then you will lose those benefits.
I'll tell you, especially with the way that some of these costs are going up, the new construction costs and everything, they're going up so quickly. It behooves you every year, if you're concerned, talk to your agent. Talk to your agent. Make sure that you're fully covered.
Yeah, that's true. That's very important because, like, when things happen, nobody know. A lot of people thought like, oh, it's never happened, but it's happened. Like,
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
It certainly
when it's
does.
happened, it's just like every month you pay thousands of dollars, but then you can collect more when things happen. We just have to think, America is always insurance. Life insurance, health insurance, everything, car insurance. I always forgot about my car registration because like I keep driving and they go, oh, the police say, do you know that can expire? I said, oh, really? I never received any renewal.
Yeah.
So that's also another to think of, the car registration for that too.
Exactly.
So I think like I know we have a lot covered. And it's really helping for our viewer out there. I know that they will there's a few more questions, but maybe we save it to the next time, and then we get more information.
Okay.
And then we can see them next time to talk about real estate investment and all the knowledge about what to do and all sorts of stuff. We're talking about important to find a good agent to work with. That's important, right?
Well, and not just having a good agent, but like I said, there's certain things certain tools that you can get out there. I really recommend that anybody that's looking at purchasing a residential property, that they get a copy of that Arizona Buyer's Advisory.
Yeah, right.
And it
they
will
can contact you to get a copy.
Yep, be happy to send it to them.
Or they can go to the
and they can call me at 480-213-7691 or go through you to get my email and I'd be happy to send it to them.
So any question that you want to raise, you can contact or even send an email to vaatv.com@gmail.com. So thanks for watching, and here's Scott Bartlowe, LinhVi, and we'll see you next time. Bye. LinhVi xin cảm ơn sự theo dõi của tất cả quý vị trong những giây phút vừa qua. Chương trình VAATV xin kính chào, tạm biệt và xin hẹn gặp lại quý vị vào lần phát hình kỳ tới. Mọi chi tiết về thông tin thương mại và bảo trợ, xin mời quý vị hãy liên lạc về địa chỉ email vaatelevision@gmail.com và số điện thoại là 480-289-9816, 480-289-9816, website vaatv.com và vaaznews.com. Xin kính chào, tạm